Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. A very happy belated Independence Day. I hope you celebrated yesterday with full of fervor and had a great day yesterday. Now let's begin with the analysis of the Hindu newspaper for today with the first article that we have talking about the problem that the Indian government is facing recently with their mission of integration of the northeast part of India. Now the author here is writing that ever since India's independence, various governments have tried to ensure that the northeast part of the country, that is the northeastern states, feel as much a part of the single identity of India as possible. And various measures have been taken with regards to that. For example, we have had the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution giving rights to the four states of the northeast part of India. We also have a lot of tribal related laws that have been passed in the past, specifically focusing on the development of the northeast part. On the other hand, we have also had contrary laws that have not really gone down well with the people of the northeast part of India. For example, AVSPA, that gives special powers to the armed forces, still exists in various parts of the northeast. So the author here is saying that in the past, the government's efforts to integrate northeast as much as possible have been hit and a miss. But the good part is, in the past couple of decades or so, a lot of initiatives have been taken from the government of India's side. He starts this article by giving a history, saying that even the British recognize the fact that the culture, the tradition, the history of most of the population living in northeast part of the country was different from the people living in other parts of the country. That is why the British in 1873 formed the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation. That is when they introduced the concept of inner line permit that exists even today in some parts of India's northeast. Inner line permit means that in certain areas of northeast, if you have to enter, you have to first take a special permission. This is a kind of a license. The British did this specifically to ensure that the mineral wealth that they are finding out. Because Assam, as you know, became very important for the British when they found out oil in the Digboy region. That is why the British wanted to preserve all the mineral wealth that they could get from the northeast, and that is why they introduced the concept of inner line permit restrictions. The concept of inner line today is not so much economic, it is mostly about the government trying to preserve the identity of the people in the northeast. But for British, it was mostly about the finances. It was mostly about how much money can they get from the northeast part of the country. The British got hold of Assam after the First Anglo-Burmese War of 1824 to 1826, in the conclusion of which the Treaty of Yandabo was signed, after which Assam became a part of British. Now, as you know, most of the states that we see in northeast part of the country were earlier a part of Assam only. British actually occupied the entire northeast that we see today, except two independent kingdoms, the kingdom of Tripura and the kingdom of Manipur. But the reality is that they were just independent in their name. In reality, the kings of these two kingdoms were also under the control of the British. How much land can they own, their movement, their treaties were all actually decided by the British. After India became independent, India actually inherited a very complex system. See, understand something. Northeast part of India has thousands of tribes having very distinct language, culture, tradition. The British forcefully kept them together. Because of the British force, although the people in the northeast who were not very similar to each other, they were actually kept together by the British under this forceful acquisition. Now that India had become independent, many people in the northeast thought that they will also get their independence from the British. That is why when the idea came about that they will be a part of India now, a lot of tribes in the northeast did not appreciate this idea. A lot of insurgent movements broke out, a lot of movements demanding independence broke out, and we see how the Naga movement is continuing even today. That was because when they became independent from the British, their idea was that they are becoming independent and they won't be a part of the country. However, the Indian government ever since then has tried its best to introduce a lot of welfare related laws. The most important of it was the sixth schedule that ensure that the tribal customs and traditions are given their own importance. That is how the government has made separate district councils. I'm sure you have read about this in Indian polity, how district councils are created under the six schedules and how they actually kind of work as a local government of the entire district, where the people in the district can actually elect their representatives to run their own district. Now, at the time when the sixth schedule became a part of the Indian constitution, we did not have any state called Nagaland. There was Naga Hills, that was a part of Assam only. They refused to be added in the sixth schedule. They said that no, we don't want this. We want to be independent. We want to be a separate country altogether. So they demanded sovereignty and nothing else. That is why when India became independent, one of the first challenges in front of the armed forces was to actually handle the Naga insurgency. It was in 1963 that a separate Nagaland state was formed, and ever since then, the government of India has been trying to ensure peace in the state of Nagaland. After that, one by one, different states were carved out of Assam, as you know, and by 1972, most of these states were actually bifurcated from Assam. The government of India, as I said, in the past 2 decades, has been ensuring a number of measures in the northeast part of India to ensure their progress and to ensure peace in the region. There has been a considerable increase in the amount of money that is being spent for infrastructure development. Since I have also personally been to the northeast part of India, that is Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Meghalaya, I can also vouch for this that the infrastructure, the roads, etc., built in those parts of the country are very, very good. That is a result of a lot of investment going into these parts in the past few years or so. The author also gives an example that in 1971, the government of India made the Northeastern Council. This Northeast Council was actually very similar to the other zonal councils that we already had since 1950s. However, as per the author, this Northeastern Council of 1971 was just an advisory body. It mainly had the governors of these states. And since governors are appointed by the central government only, this was mainly being seen by the locals as a body by which the union government wants to keep an eye on the states rather than helping the state. But thankfully in 2002, the role was changed and this body became an infrastructure planning body in the northeast part of the country. Sikkim also was made a part of this body, and now it did not just have the governors, the chief minister of the states were also made a part of these bodies. The government of India then also launched the Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, that is DONER. It came up in 2001 and in 2004 it was upgraded to a full-fledged ministry that exists even today. The ministers responsible for this ministry today are Mr. G. Kishan Reddy, who is a cabinet minister. This ministry has been given the responsibility specifically to ensure that the development efforts of the northeast part of the country are not slowed down. The government then went one step ahead. In 2010, a protected area regime that had said that visitors to Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, especially by foreigners, will be restricted, that was also relaxed. These are some of the examples, as per the author, of how in the past 2 decades the government has actually taken a lot of steps to integrate the northeast part of the country with the Indian mainland. However, he also says that in the past few years, these efforts have not just slowed down, but the connect of the central government with these people has actually declined. He gives certain examples. He says that despite various demands of UPSC taken down from the northeast part of the country, it has not been done. Also, the government's intentions behind the Citizenship Amendment Act have still not been clear. As you know, this Citizenship Amendment Act has been a burning issue in the northeast part of the country since most of them border with Bangladesh, and the focus of this act has been on the people coming in from Bangladesh only. Now, the ruling party at the center says that the northeast part of the country supports us because BJP has governments in most of the states of the northeast right now. But if you look at the history, the interesting trend is that whichever party actually has the power at the center government level, mostly you will see that the northeastern states vote for them at the state level also. So when it was a Congress government at the center, most of the northeast states were ruled by the Congress. Now that we have the BJP government at the center, it is the BJP that is ruling over most of the states in northeast part of the country. So the BJP or the ruling government should not assume that whatever they say will be accepted by the people. As per the author, the government should listen to the people of the northeast, and whatever their problems are, they should be resolved just like the other issues were resolved in the past. Now, one other interesting point here is In the past few years, you have seen ever since Ladakh became a union territory and got divided from Jammu and Kashmir, they have also been demanding inclusion in the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution, just like Arunachal Pradesh has also been demanding the same. However, this has not been done so far. Now, as you would have read, the sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution specifically talks about Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram and gives certain rights to safeguard the tribal population of these states. Now, this schedule says that there will be autonomous district councils (ADC) that will be formed in these areas. Now, autonomous district council are much like the local government, district government. 26 members in the autonomous district council will be elected by the people living in that area above 18 years of age. They will vote, and the remaining 4 will be nominated by the governor. These autonomous district councils will have certain legislative powers as well. They also have the power to levy taxes, collect fees, tolls, so on and so forth. Other interesting part is that some acts of the parliament and state legislature do not apply to these autonomous districts or regions. The governor has been given some powers with respect to these councils as well. The main benefits of having these councils is that it gives the right to the people to ensure that their local customs and rituals are protected, and no law of the center or the state government against their ritual is actually imposed on them. That is why Ladakh has also been demanding their inclusion in the sixth schedule. These are the total of 10 autonomous district councils that we have right now under the sixth schedule. As the list tells you, it is not necessary that one state will only have one autonomous district council. Tripura has only one, but Assam, as you see, has 3 autonomous district councils. Same with Mizoram, same with Meghalaya. So it depends on the different types of tribes. For example, in Meghalaya, there are different types of tribes living in different areas. So for each of those areas, we have an autonomous district council, ADC. The same with Assam, same with Mizoram, and the same with Tripura as well. The next article that we have here is about the contribution of India's first Prime Minister, Shri Jawaharlal Nehru, to what India is today. This is an article that says that the infrastructure and the institutions put in place at the time of Jawaharlal Nehru still exist even today and are playing an extremely important role in taking India forward. He says that institutions that have become the hallmark of today's India, be it the LIC, the IITs, the initial IIMs, were all a part of Jawaharlal Nehru's legacy. He was a person who focused a lot on building this capital infrastructure. He had said that these new infrastructures are actually the temple of modern India. He included in this list the Bhagra Nagal Dam, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, AIMS, LIC, ONGC, Indian Oil Corporation, National Institute of Design, so on and so forth. It is not just that he was focusing on higher education and top jobs. He was also focusing on the grassroots level. As per the author, at the same time when the IITs were planned, he also focused on network of Kendriya Vidyalayas. Now, just to give you an idea, the Kendriya Vidyalayas actually, the idea came up because of the requirement of central government officials. So, the reason why Kendriya Vidyalayas were set up was that central government or any state government also, they transfer their employees very frequently. Now let's assume that a government official is transferred in the month of September or December. Now when they transfer, their kids have to drop out from the school, and when they go to the next city, they would not get admission into any school because that is in the middle of any session. So this was a huge problem being faced by the government officials. To solve this, the Kendriya Vidyalayas were actually established. The main idea behind establishment of Kendriya Vidyalayas was to cater to the children of the government officials. If they get transferred and they come new to the city, even if they ask for admission in the middle of the session, it would be given to them. That is the entire concept of Kendriya Vidyalayas. And even today, that is why the Kendriya Vidyalayas, in order to get admission into there, they are open to private people also. Every member of parliament has certain quota to get admission into the Kendriya Vidyalayas. Now, this is how the Kendriya Vidyalayas work. That was also a part of the legacy of Jawaharlal Nehru only. He also ensured that at the grassroots level, people get enough opportunities. He knew the importance of setting up small and cottage industries, and that is why his government set up the KVIC, that is the Khadi and Village Industries Commission. Most of the big steel power plants, be it Bhilai, Rourkela, etc., were also set up during his tenure. He was also a visionary when it comes to planning. The so called concept of smart city that we see today is not a new concept. In fact, India's first planned city, that is Chandigarh, was a result of his thinking and his government's initiatives. Not just this, two important institutions set up at the time of Nehru, one by the Constituent Assembly, that is Election Commission of India, and other by an executive order of Nehru's government only, that is a Planning Commission, have also played a huge role in India's development. Now, one single person obviously cannot run the entire country. Nehru, in that sense, was actually very, very lucky to have support of some of the most talented people in India's history who were the contemporary of Jawaharlal Nehru. Be it Homi Bhabha, Vikram Sarabhai, PC Mahalanobis, we had Verghese Kurian, the person behind Amul, we had CD Deshmukh, the person who ran the Reserve Bank of India. All these people were there to support and implement Nehru's vision, and that is how India turned out to be the way that it did. Indian Oil Corporation, in fact, became the first Indian company to be listed in Fortune 100. Amul, as you know, has become a household name and has played a major role in pushing India towards becoming the largest milk producer in the world today. Nehru, in total, held the Prime Minister's post for 17 long years. Even after he died, a lot of initiatives that were taken were because of the structures that he had set in place. Green Revolution, the 1991 LPG reforms were all taken by people who actually considered and followed Nehru's vision all along in their lives. People such as M.S. Swaminathan, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Sam Pitroda have always been supporters of Nehru's vision. He was not just a national identity, but he was an international statesman, and wherever he went, the people listened to him with open ears and open heart. When he passed away, the famous Economist magazine had the title World Without Nehru. One of the things that we have to understand is it's very unfortunate that we are now living in a time that it has become very fashionable to criticize people who are no more. People who played a huge role in making the country what it is today. You will see that people are ready to criticize them whenever they want without thinking about the situation when they were alive, without actually understanding the role that they played in taking India forward. Not just Nehru, you see people actually being very open to criticize Mahatma Gandhi also and many other people who do not suit their narrative. That is not the best way forward because ultimately, looking back 50, 60 years, 70 years ago, it is very, very easy to criticize anyone because you have the advantage of looking at the hindsight. But imagine a person living in that era taking a country forward that has just become independent. They obviously would have done some things right. It is no secret that if you look around India's neighborhood, the countries that became independent at the same time, look at their situation, look at India's situation. The entire world did not give India a chance. The Western press kept on writing that India will disintegrate very quickly, the army will take over, but nothing of that sort had happened. So obviously, it has to be something right that was done by the initial leaders of India at that point of time. Nehru's legacy is usually counted in these five major categories. He ensured nation building when India was just independent. He ensured democratic institution building such as Election Commission of India. He ensured that the idea of secularism, although it was not mentioned in the constitution at his time, was still upheld and followed. He ensured that his policies were democratic and socialist, and his idea of foreign policy of non-alignment and Panchsheel is followed even today by the nation. The next article that we have here is written by a very frequent and common writer in the Hindu newspaper, that is Mr. R.K. Vij, the former DGP of Chhattisgarh. Here he talks about the police reforms that have long been pending and the reason behind the distrust between the people and the police. He says that since the Indian Penal Code came into being, the Parliament of India has actually been extremely proactive in introducing new laws as per the time period and also upholding the new values. It is because of the Parliament's action only that we have laws such as the Dowry Prohibition, such as the SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, all these things have been in place because of the Parliament's proactive nature. The government of India has also had the support of the judiciary. For example, the Supreme Court has upheld the right to privacy. The Supreme Court has time and time again made sure that any action against fundamental rights is curtailed. While all these are good and all these are requirements of the time, the one area where judiciary and the government have missed out on is the police reforms. He says that the lack of trust between the police and the people still exists. Despite the fact that police power has been curtailed extensively in the past few decades, people still don't trust the police very, very often. He says that the use of handcuffs has been cut down. The police inspector's power to arrest has also been curtailed. There is a mandatory presence of a lawyer during interrogation. CCTV cameras have been installed in the police stations. All these things have been done to make the police more accountable towards the people and to make the people feel more empowered. However, despite all of this, the trust deficit between the people and the police still exists in the country, and no action has been taken in this regard so far. There have been many committees that have been formed, there have been multiple recommendations that have been given, including the famous Supreme Court judgment of the Prakash Singh case. However, the distrust between the police and the public still remains. That is mainly because even the Supreme Court's judgment was not followed by the state governments. The author says that in the Prakash Singh case, the Supreme Court gave multiple directives about how to improve the structure of the police, but it was not implemented. The central government said that police is a state subject, so the state government should come forward and they should implement these changes. But the state governments, on the other hand, did not take any initiative. There was also a new Model Police Act drafted by Mr. Soli J. Sorabji, India's past Attorney General. However, this was also not implemented by any of the states. So the state governments can't just throw the blame on the center government because they have also not been able to make any changes. The other problem that we have as per the author is that India's police system follows the rules of the British era. Now understand this, when the British established the police, their purpose was that the police should ensure that the rule of the British is actually very, very strong. So the police was actually told not to do anything by themselves. The police at the time of the British were under the administration. They had to take orders from the administration. Without the collector's order, the police could not do anything at the time of the British. Sadly, as per the author, the same concept remains today. Even today, be it the district superintendent of police, that is the DSP, he can't even transfer an SHO without the approval of the district magistrate. Even today, the district magistrate holds a lot of power over the police within that district. The alternate system is a police commissionerate system, but that has also not been established. I'll discuss a bit about police commissionerate system after we end this article. He says that although 1861 was a turning point for the police in India because proper laws were actually set up for the police power, but the fact is that the British established the police for their own benefit. And unfortunately, we have been continuing the same practice rather than actually turning the police into such a kind of a force that works for the betterment of the people. He says that it is time for the government to ensure that the recommendations given by the Supreme Court and other commissions are actually followed and we revive the police system in India. Now let me share with you what exactly was the Prakash Singh case and what did the Supreme Court say. See, Prakash Singh was a retired DGP of the UP police. He also served in Assam. After his retirement, he filed a PIL in the Supreme Court requesting police reforms in the country. The Supreme Court accepted the PIL and in 2006 gave these directives. For example, the Supreme Court said that the tenure and the selection of the DGP should be fixed. Why? So that the political pressure over the police should not exist. The Supreme Court also said that a minimum tenure should be given to Inspector General of the Police and their transfers should not be done randomly by the politicians. The Supreme Court asked for establishment of police establishment boards with police officers and bureaucrats in place that will decide on transfer, posting, etc. rather than the political leaders themselves. The Supreme Court also suggested setting up a state police complaints authority so that the common people can actually file complaints against the police also. Because right now, the only place where people can go and complain is the police station itself. But what if you have a problem against the police, then where would you go? The other directive of the court included separation of investigation and law and order function to improve the policing. This is extremely important. Today, the same police officer is expected to go and solve a crime where a murder has taken place, to collect evidence, talk to witness, etc. And the same police officer is then expected to go ahead, chase criminals, and take part in the encounters. These are two very different things. These require very different kind of skill sets, and that is why they cannot be given to one single person. So the responsibility of law and order maintenance should be separate, and the responsibility of investigating the crime should be separate. However, the reality is that the state governments did not really follow it up. There was a report that was published in 2020 by Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative that said not even one state in India has fully been compliant with the Supreme Court's directive. Not even one state. The Supreme Court obviously has not been happy with it. Mr. Prakash Singh, in fact, went to the court again, saying that court's contempt has happened, court's directives have not been fulfilled. However, the Supreme Court has not taken much action in that regard. They have just requested the governments from time to time to implement these recommendations of the Supreme Court. Now, one other thing that this article mentioned was about the commissionerate system. Now, understand this. Big cities in India like Delhi, Mumbai, etc. have the commissionerate system. Now, what is the commissionerate system and what is the other system? The usual system is called the dual system, and the alternative is the commissionerate system. Dual system means that the district police is under two heads. One, district magistrate, and second, SP. SP is actually the head of the district police. So if the police has to, let's say, take any order, the police has to impose curfew, etc., they will have to take orders from the DM. Only after the permission of the DM, they will be able to impose these things. The DM's permission is required. On the other hand, in the commissionerate system, the police is not under the control of the DM. The police comes under control of the commissioner of police. Now, the commissioner of police has been given the power of commissionary also and magistrate also. There is less accountability to the local administration in this case. The action that the police can take is much more swift because they don't have to go to the district magistrate time and time again to ask for permission. Obviously, the bureaucratic system, that is the IAS, would obviously want the dual system to exist. Because if a city has a commissionerate system, that means the DM of that city does not have a lot of powers over the police. So police obviously wants the commissionerate system. The IAS lobby always wants a dual system, and that is why the demand for commissionerate system has been curtailed and has been cut down, especially by the IAS bureaucrats in the country. The next article that we have here is about India-EU ties. It talks about how India and EU can actually prosper in the future. This is written because India-EU bilateral ties have also completed 60 years on the occasion of India's 75th year of independence. The authors here are saying that India-EU has had bilateral relations for a long time. We have also had multiple India-EU summits from time to time, and we have improved our relationship considerably. Today, India and EU collaborate on a number of aspects, be it trade and investment, be it defense, jobs, investments, so on and so forth. The bilateral trade between the two sides crossed $116 billion, making EU India's second largest trading partner after the US. India also exports a lot of things to the EU, apart from sending a lot of people to work and study in EU. Not just the entire group, even with individual nations of EU, India has good relations. India-France relations have always been good in terms of defense and other things. India-Denmark are also collaborating for clean energy, and India-Germany have also been trying to collaborate on other matters. Some of the examples that the authors share is the defense cooperation between India and France. France on time delivered the 36 Rafale jets that the deal was signed for. They have also offered us their nuclear attack submarines, which also reflects the kind of trust that the two sides have built with each other. That is why even the defense collaboration between the two sides is improving day by day. However, The fact remains that despite all of this, there are a lot of differences of views on different topics, Russia being the first one. While EU does not want India to support Russia on any matter whatsoever, India on the other hand has pointed out that EU has been hypocritical. EU itself is buying fuel from Russia but does not want India to buy the same if it is coming at a cheaper cost. Also, from India's side, EU has not been enough critical of China as we would like. When the Kalwan clashes took place, none of the EU countries actually stood up and criticized what China has been doing. So expecting India to take the side of EU when EU is not doing the same for India is not really logical. The other problem between the two sides is that the free trade agreement has been in talks for many years now. India has been actively seeking a free trade agreement while EU has been making different types of excuses. The talks on the free trade agreement have resumed, so hopefully the situation will become better. But by the speed that it is actually going, this is a big disappointment for the people who actually support the two sides coming together. As you know, these are the European Union nations. UK is not one of them now. Also, this is a timeline of relationship between India and EU. As the article tells you, 60th year of India-EU relationships have been completed because they officially set up their bilateral relations in 1962. One more thing that I would like to point out here is EU's double standards and hypocrisy with respect to China specifically. If you actually see, the reason why EU has not been signing free trade agreement with India is they say that India's human rights record is not great or India's government is not really working properly in the interest of the people. However, if you look at EU's trade with China, there is no match with respect to India. EU's trade with China is close to, or in fact even more than $700 billion today. 700 billion as compared to India, which was 116 billion. So if they really have a problem of human rights observations, if they really have a problem with how the government is treating the people, there is no logic behind how exactly are they dealing so much with China. This just proves the fact that EU, whenever their own interests are in place, they will deal with anyone, be it China, be it Russia, anyone. But when the other nation does the same, they start having a problem with it. So EU's hypocrisy and double standards have been exposed very openly in the past couple of years or so. The next article that we have here is about the controversial visit of a Chinese ship, a Chinese vessel to the Sri Lankan port of Hambantota. You would have read this, that Sri Lankan government recently approved a Chinese vessel to come to the Hambantota port of Sri Lanka. Now the fact is that it is a special kind of a vessel which is a satellite tracking vessel. It can track the satellite of other nations. That is why India also has not been very happy with it. In fact, when Chinese vessel first asked for permission from Sri Lanka to come to this port, India put a lot of pressure on Sri Lanka and they actually denied permission. But now, after continuous pressure from China, because Sri Lanka has taken a lot of money from China anyway, and if you actually see, Hambantota is actually Chinese port only. They have leased it. That is why finally Sri Lanka has given the permission. Now, Yuan Wang 5, this is the name of this vessel, is actually a scientific research ship. The Chinese say it will conduct satellite control and research tracking in the northwestern part of the Indian Ocean region. India obviously is not happy with it because having the Chinese research vessel so close to the Indian port is against India's national interest. That is why we have concerns over the visit of the Chinese vessel. China obviously has never been very straight on the point. Their argument was it is a research vessel, it is our port. As you know, the Hambantota port has been leased from Sri Lanka to China for 99 years. So it is actually essentially Chinese territory only. China is saying that we have always ensured and maintained freedom of the navigation of the ocean. So we should not actually be denied permission. It is not the first time that we are coming to Sri Lanka. Many ships, not just from China, but many other countries keep coming to Sri Lanka, so there is no reason to deny permission. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, as you know, is under a lot of pressure of China. They already have so much Chinese loans that they eventually had to say yes only. No one expected that just because India is saying Sri Lanka will actually deny permission to China, and this is what has actually happened. Now, if you actually see, this is the port of Hambantota. The main port of Sri Lanka is Colombo. As you can see, this is the largest port in Sri Lanka. Even when the port of Hambantota was built, it was at the center of a lot of controversy. And I'll tell you why. See, the democratic politics is the same in all nations, be it India, be it Sri Lanka, be it USA. When politicians go to the people to ask for votes, they obviously make huge promises. So, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was actually fighting elections, he and his brothers belonged to this small city of Hambantota. When they were fighting elections, they promised their people that vote for us and we will build a big port in this city. When we build the big port, people will get jobs, we'll get employment, etc. etc. Now, when they won the election, they wanted to build this port because they had promised it to the people. But whenever they went to World Bank and any of these organizations, they even came to India, no one gave them loan. Why? Because if you look at this here, Colombo is very close to Hambantota. And Colombo already was a well-established port. It had a lot of traffic, well-built port. So all the ships actually used to come to Colombo only. So whenever they went to World Bank or anywhere else, everyone said there's no need to build a Hambantota port. It is not viable, you will not earn enough money. But the politicians of Sri Lanka were adamant that no, we want to build a port no matter what. So they could not get a loan. And as you know, when no one can give you a loan, the only person which will give you a loan is China. China happily gave them a loan knowing fully well that Sri Lanka would not be able to return the money because they will not have any income from this port. And this is what exactly happened. China gave this money to Sri Lanka to build the port. China, in fact, brought its own people to build the port. And when Sri Lanka said that we can't give you back the money, China said, okay, then we are taking over the port for 99 years lease. For a lease of 99 years, now this port and the region close to the port is actually Chinese territory now for 99 years. That is what has worried India for a long, long time. And the problem is, it is not just Sri Lanka. China has been following this debt trap policy for many, many years now. As you can see, there are a lot of nations in India's neighborhood specifically who are under a lot of Chinese debt. Now, the reason why these nations agree to Chinese money is they think that we will build a lot of infrastructure, people will get jobs, but that is never the case. For example, when China gives you money to build a port, they don't just give you the money. China will bring its own company to build the port. China will bring its own workers to build the port. So even for building the port, Sri Lanka or Pakistan's local population will not get any jobs. It is the Chinese people only who will get the jobs. It is the Chinese money going back to Chinese companies only. That is the debt trap. Chinese loans are always at a higher rate of interest as compared to the market rate. And that is why these countries always fell into this debt trap. These were the important articles on the Hindu newspaper today. All of these are extremely, extremely important. So do read very, very carefully today's Hindu newspaper's editorial. These are the two practice questions for you today. Number one. The problem of distrust between the police and the public in India can be resolved by following the Supreme Court's judgment in the Prakash Singh case. Do you agree? Elaborate. Second, a good beginning means half the job is done. In light of this statement, evaluate the legacy of Jawaharlal Nehru as India's first Prime Minister. Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a good day ahead.